Serialized in 1994, Hitoshi Ashinano's manga Yokohama Kaidashi Kikou only recently got its first official release in English. Only took until 2022 for that to happen. Wild. For quite a while, the OVAs were the only thing I had engaged with when it comes to the android Alpha and her small seaside cafe. After taking a look at the manga at that point, I was hit with stunning page after page, filled with beautiful imagery filled with nothing but charm. 2 years later, the entire manga series would finally be released in English, which ended up being a delightful read. Yokohama Kaidashi Kikou, which I will refer to as YKK from here on for brevity, is Iyashike to the extreme. The manga follows Alpha and the other characters that she meets through her cafe in their daily lives in this winding down world. There are chapters that are Alpha just serving coffee and she and her guests sitting down, chatting and drinking. Chapters of Alpha going out for the day looking for cool subjects to take pictures of. There's one chapter that's literally just receiving a bottle of Kahlua in the mail from Coconut, another robot that Alpha is friends with, and just drinking some Kahlua. That's literally it. Nothing but mundanity presented in the most beautiful way possible. Thank you to my supporters. If you like the video, consider subscribing, or even joining the Patreon. Link on screen and in the description. If you do, you'll be thanked in the videos to be able to watch each video a week early, as well as gain access to bonus videos. There are many chapters and pages in general that feature minimal to no dialogue, just pure visuals doing the talking. YKK has a really strong focus on the scenery, which Ashinano is really good at drawing beautiful and sometimes even melancholic compositions. Wide open spaces filled with nothing but dilapidated cities of old, roads overtaken by grass and weeds, neighborhoods still lighting up and coming alive from underneath the water, weird organic street lamps lighting a path through the night. The world of YKK is on a decline, and yet it's filled with so much beauty. Even with the current state of the world, nearly every chapter is filled with the beauty of the remaining world, as well as those left living in it. Alpha playing her moon guitar is some of my favorite pages of the entire manga. People just coming by the cafe to relax and drink coffee, enjoying a nice ride or a walk. There's nothing but serene art on display of pleasant activity coupled with gorgeous backgrounds, nothing but comfort, page after page. I'm guessing by now that you can probably tell that YKK has a bit of a sci-fi twist going on. I mean, Alpha is a fucking robot. Of course this is going in that direction in some capacity. But the world of YKK takes place on an Earth during the era of the evening calm. It's a world that's winding down. Humanity is on their way out, but things are pretty peaceful nonetheless. I was reminded a bit of Nier when I was reading this, in how that game starts with sweeping shots of an idyllic rural town with the narration describing how it's supposedly in an apocalyptic setting. And that's really similar in YKK. There is supposedly some sort of disaster that's fucked up the environment and now the Earth is cooked. The sea levels are rising rapidly and shit is generally in a bad position. Despite the setting leaning on the sci-fi side, very little actually gets explained about it. There's zero explanation on what the disaster that led to the evening calm is, less so on if it's a purely natural or man-made environmental disaster. There's fuck all on what the Osprey, the Barracudas, the Targon, the freakish white people-shaped things, or the bio street lamps are. Nothing really. Any part of this setting that lends it its sci-fi aesthetic goes without delineation. If you're the type of person that needs hard and fast rules for how things work, you won't find shit here. But I kinda like the fact that so little is unexplained. For one thing, I don't think providing explanation on every single little thing is needed for the thing to either look nice on the page or work thematically. Honestly, I think it adds to the allure of the setting. Like, what is up with the organic street lamps? I'll never know, but I can guarantee that that's a visual that will be stuck with me for a while despite the lack of answer. Maybe it's because of the lack of answer too that will make me think about it more in the days to come. YKK is by and large about the passage of time. If you look at the back of the English volumes, they remind you about this fact on all the little blurbs. Time that flows like silk through your fingers. Cool imagery right there. But YKK is about how nothing lasts forever. There will be things that you look back on feeling nostalgic for, things that you'll perhaps never see again. One of the last gifts that Alpha receives from her owner is a camera, and in that message that Alpha receives alongside it, her owner tells her about this fact. So he gives Alpha the camera and tells her to capture the world, and this camera is periodically brought up throughout the manga. Even the cafe that Alpha spends her time in doesn't last forever. During a typhoon, that shit gets leveled. Even after it's rebuilt, people still notice things that aren't the same as it was prior, things that will never be again. Things change. People change. They get older and become new people in a way. Even a single year can deeply change someone. In the year or so that Alpha leaves on her journey, she leaves the young teenage boy Takahito, and comes back to not just him now being taller than her, but to him now entering adulthood. He doesn't play as often anymore, now spending a lot of his time working. The world changes. There are several times throughout the manga that Alpha notices the cliffside near the cafe eroding and encroaching on Café Alpha. There are some flashback chapters with Komiishi and Oji-san, where they're riding down a street remarking that this will likely be the last time they'll ever get the chance to be on that road. Regardless of input, nothing lasts forever. And recognizing that, both Alpha and this manga as a whole spend their time enjoying the now and what there currently is, knowing that it might not be there tomorrow. Fortunately, YKK got picked up a couple of years ago by 7 Seas Entertainment and given its first English release. YKK got compiled into 5 girthy as fuck volumes that I picked up as they came out. This was kind of a mistake to do for volume 1 because, for some reason, the initial print run for the first volume has fucked up contrast and the grays are darker than they should be. You can see when comparing it directly to other pages in later volumes. Volume 1 just has some fucked up grays. Does it make it impossible to read? No, I wouldn't say that, but there are a couple of pages where it gets especially egregious and completely takes away the ability to even see what's happening. A terrible example would be page 248 with the fireworks going off. You can't see shit. It is unfortunate that such a classic like this wasn't given proper quality control, especially right out the gate. I can't say whether or not this got fixed and reprinted. I just don't know. What I can say is that this issue doesn't persist for the later volumes. This is an issue local only to the first. Although I do have a misprinting on my copy of Volume 3, the reflective shit on it is misaligned and printed above where it should be. I don't believe this to be a common occurrence, though I have seen some images online of a way more fucked up misprint of Volume 2. I don't have much experience with 7 Seas as a publisher. All I've got is YKK and also the release of The Girl from the Other Side, and it's not the best showing. The Girl from the Other Side is some beautiful hardcover shit, but then there's YKK that's pretty fucked up. Gonna make me a bit more cautious to recommend their releases with what I've seen. Though with that said, these are otherwise pretty lovely volumes. Each one is nearly 500 pages, making them thick as fuck. The reflective printing makes them stand out on the shelf, at least when it's aligned properly. It makes the rainbow underneath really eye-catching. That part is cool. The pages are decent quality, I'd say. It's not thin, so you can't see what's on the other side of the page through the page. So a mostly black page won't mess with what's on the flip side. And each volume opens up with a series of full-color pages compiling the Japanese volume covers before entering into the chapters proper. When it's a nice experience here. But I'm just going to say look into if 7 Seas fixed the contrast issues with Volume 1 before you buy that shit. For 20 to 25 bucks, I'd expect something of better quality. Makes me a little bit sad, but not as sad as the YKK light novel. Yeah, if you're familiar with YKK, you probably know about the manga and the OVAs, which I'm getting to, give me a couple of minutes. But there was actually a single novel called Yokohama Kaidashi Kikou, Seeing, Walking, and Enjoying. Shout out to H. Berry for their translation of the story. Shit's recent too. Came out in March of this year, it looks like. Seeing, Walking, and Enjoying wasn't written by Hitoshi Ashinano. It was instead written by Teruha Katsuki, whose only credit I can find is just this short novel. No idea what else they've done. However, Ashinano did provide art to this, so it probably got some sort of seal of approval. It's possible Ashinano outsourced the writing portions out to Katsuki because Ashinano's strength lies more in the art and imagery department. The short story starts off with a robot Omega, designed to look like a young boy who is told about Alpha and her mysterious coffee drink before Omega's creator ends up dying. Omega then travels to Café Alpha and finds Alpha at the counter, now in a permanent sleep mode. As it turns out, this novel does not take place during the events of the YKK manga. It does not even take place during the era of the Evening Calm. It's unknown how long after this story takes place, but it takes place during the Night of Man, when it's believed that humanity has either gone extinct, or so few are left alive that humanity might as well be considered gone. Omega then realizes that Alpha's memory is still intact somehow, and he decides to poke into them initially to learn about how to make coffee himself, but eventually he grows attached to the warmth of others during the Evening Calm, wanting more out of it. Seeing, Walking, and Enjoying uses Omega as a frame story to adapt a select handful of chapters from the manga, bouncing between Alpha's and Takahito's point of views, as well as describing events of various characters as passing. Yeah, this shit is far more melancholic than the manga. The story deals a lot about death and having to come to terms with the loneliness of having to carry on into the future with everyone else no longer being around. For Omega, he was created during the Night of Man. He's never known the comfort of other people, but peering into both Alpha's and Takahito's memories, he starts to long to have lived in that time. Some real heavy shit, way heavier than the manga ever gets. Even Takahito's point of view is no happier. His sections of the story revolve around the nature of growing up. To Takahiro, Alpha in a way represents his childhood. He changes, but she really doesn't. Eventually it becomes too much to bear for him to be reminded of this fact. Even worse is his developing feelings for Alpha, which even he knows will only give him heartbreak, and decides he needs to move on, or rather, move into adulthood. I would understand why someone who is a fan of YKK wouldn't be interested in reading this. Shit's sad. It's a far different tone than the manga, and coming off of that, I would get if you didn't want that tone even if it is supposedly more YKK. There's also the issue that there's a lot of inconsistencies in the story. First off, Kokone is nowhere here. Not physically, and not in the memories even when she should be. This story adapts the portion where Alpha receives the camera, and instead of Kokone, it's Oji-san who delivers the camera to Alpha. So between these discrepancies and the fact that it isn't even written by Ashinano, if you wanted to write this off and ignore it, I'd get it. I, however, did enjoy reading it. I like stories that make me sad, and this certainly did. But I don't like it because it's just a non-stop sad wank hunched over crying in the corner. It's because of themes of growing up, loss, and loneliness, and I fucked with how it was told in this story. There's more to the story that I don't want to spoil regarding Alpha herself, as well as why Takehiro's memories are even inside Alpha to begin with. One thing this book does a lot of, that I wasn't expecting, was expand on concepts in the world of YKK. It delves into the reason Alpha was built, and on the history of robot models leading up to the A7 series, which Alpha is a part of. I would recommend reading it. It's not very long, you could easily crush it in an afternoon, but do go in emotionally prepared that it can get pretty sad. My first exposure to YKK would be through the OVAs. I was probably in high school when I learned of this series and saw the scene of robot girls kissing, said fuck yes I'm in, and watched the OVAs. There are 2 sets of OVAs of 2 episodes each. The first set came out in 1998 and the other set came out in 2002 with the attached subtitle Quiet Country Cafe. Despite being animated at the same studio, different directors were in charge of the 2 sets. The 98 OVAs adapts a handful of chapters from earlier sections in the manga. In the first episode, you've got Kokone arriving to deliver the camera, and then the second episode involves the lightning strike, casually roasting coffee on a windy day, and seeing the underwater city lights with Komiishi. These OVAs really places emphasis on the relaxed atmosphere of the manga. Long, drawn-out shots of mundanity, enjoying the comfort of either others or that of a warm drink. The OVA has a fuck ton of wide shots. I say majority of the shots in this are from a distance to really capture as much of the scenery as possible. If you're a fan of background porn, then this shit is absolutely for you. Also a lot of dissolves. Feels like there's more dissolves in these 2 episodes than there are in entire seasons of anime. It does add to that slow, relaxed feeling as it eases you from one shot to the next, but also every other shot feels like it transitions using a dissolve. You just don't see that often, so I couldn't help but notice. The 2002 OVA, or Quiet Country Cafe, has decreased dissolves and increased horniness. The shit opens up on Kokone feeling up in a sleep Alpha for some reason. Hey girl, that's fucked up. You know what's really hot? Consent. But also there are so many feet shots of Alpha. Just straight up Alpha feet goonerism. I know there aren't many panels focusing on Alpha's bare feet, so this decision to include many shots of it had to be made by someone for some reason. And I think it's to get off on it. Anyway, Quiet Country Cafe's 2 episodes adapt the section of Café Alpha being demolished during the typhoon as well as parts of her journey over the next year or so. It's really ironic how the OVA is subtitled Quiet Country Cafe, given how little the cafe is in this and how the first episode is about it getting flattened. It's not just added feet shots, but this OVA actually does add a lot of little moments that are new here and not present in the manga. The first episode adds a couple of scenes with Alpha on the day of the typhoon. Of her just making coffee, reading and eating some celery, reaching over the counter to change the radio and eating hard shit for it. I like those additions. They definitely capture the spirit of YKK given how many chapters of the manga feel like that. With that said, I do feel that Quiet Country Cafe is weaker than the 98 OVA. The 98 OVA I feel captures the pathos of the manga way more with its emphasis on the beauty of the surroundings, something I feel isn't given as much weight in Quiet Country Cafe. While I can't in good faith recommend purchasing the first volume of the manga unless you are holding it in your hands and can appraise it for yourself and see if 7 Seas fix their shit, I can in good faith recommend any and all things Yokohama Kaidashi Kikou. Maybe go on your own 7 Seas for reading the first volume. That's what I ended up doing. It's a very comforting and occasionally introspective series with some fun characters. Alpha is nothing but super wife material, but also an atmosphere to drink up and enjoy on any calm evening.